I'll take us back to the overall map of this presentation. We were in the upper right now talking about the holographic principle and the empowering news from science that make us the prime architects of our own evolution, and the practical life codes that we can read from the body graph, how to flow with life and not create interference, but have our optimum. And now we're moving to the lower left quadrant, where we talk about relationships, basically. The lower left quadrant is where the internal collective, interior collective aspect of our apprehension is described. It's where the worldview, the interpretation of the world is rooted. We share that internally. These are the invisible webs of culture, where it's all about relationships, and it's about relationships that work because they're based on being seen and seeing and being seen, and on mutual respect and on appreciation and on understanding, and knowing the practical life code of yourself and of the other person in front of you helps you to accept the person and appreciate the person exactly the way they work. So this lower left quadrant is about what the genes do naturally, which is cooperation, communication, and creativity together, forming a community that works in cooperation. That's what happens in each of our cells, in 50 billion cells of our body. And this is what we are here to do together, to have an all-embracing attitude and be inviting to other people so that real relationships that work are accessible. Here we look at the individual within the greater whole, and the all-embracing aspect of the integral approach means that we are part of something bigger. There is a body of humanity, and we're all part of this, and even if we look at an individual body graph, we always see it as part of the body of humanity. We are all one orchestra. We're all creating the music together, and as we saw before, the attitude that we share and the attitude that we pass on within our communities and families, and the attitude that we hold in our heart and that we radiate out is what creates the quality of the music within this orchestra. So, can I pass it on to you, Richard, and you say something about the inviting aspect?
Yes, I'd like to have a little talk about how integral human design can influence, us in our relationships and in our families, and how we really tune the orchestra. Because for me, integral human design is more about just being an individual and empowerment, and it's looking at many different ways. And its real power as a practical transformational tool comes alive in our relationships, and in particular our families. And this is where it's really inviting, because it invites everyone to look at their lives and live their lives at a higher octave, because the future is always really in the hands of the next generations. So I'm always wondering what kind of human beings are going to inherit the world to come in the future. So we really have to look at how we treat our children in the West, because they're so homogenized, and we send them to school so early at the age of 4, and there's really very little understanding of natural 7-year cycles of balanced emotional development. And there's very little moral or spiritual guidance for their parents, let alone children. So as I've been developing this synthesis, the gene key synthesis, and integrating it with the integral human design perspective, I've been field testing it in my own life, in my own family, as I have 3 little ones. And I also offer guidance using integral human design to many parents in my area. And so I really use the body graph to highlight the higher gifts of the children. And we can do this not just for children, we do it for ourselves. Because one of the things I've realized is that parents, they don't really need strategies for dealing with children, actually. Because they're everywhere, there's strategies. Every book you read has strategies for how to deal with your children. What parents really need is a vision. And what we all need in our relationships is a vision. And that vision can come through the gene keys in your chart. because they allow you to see the inner genius there. Because your children are not going to remember the strategies you use unless you abuse them. What they're really going to remember is what really is going to impact them the deepest is the inner vision you hold around them. So you've really got to resonate the energy field of that higher vision all around them as they grow. And then they grow up within that energy field, within that quantum field that you're generating. And it slowly, imperceptibly enters them over the years. Because what you're doing is you're activating their higher genetic coding rather than impressing your shadow frequencies on them. And you can do this with all your relationships. The way you inwardly see another person is actually creating that environment, that quantum emotional environment around them. And obviously in a child, it's much easier to see them as a pure embodiment of love or whatever it is. In adults, it may take a little longer. But that's our work, that's the task. So if you consistently hold a higher frequency around another person, you're forcing them either to raise themselves up to that frequency or to leave over a period of time. So as a parent or as anyone in a relationship, this gives you a vision. Integral Human Design, the view through your body graph, particularly through the higher codes, gives you a vision of who you're dealing with really. And it's the foundation of other approaches that we use in the Gene Keys for as well, that help the families and help relationships. And when a whole group does it, which we do through the Gene Keys synthesis in many different ways, and the deep dive explorations we do it as a whole group. It's like we're really tuning and refining and raising the frequency of the whole orchestra. So it's very powerful. So when you apply this to relationships, and I'm just giving you a sneak preview here, because it's an amazing aspect of Integral Human Design that we will look into in the future. It shows you the chemistry themes of your relationships and how one person resonating at a high frequency can literally begin to transform another person, because it shows the auras and how the bioenergetic fields are interacting with each other. So if your frequency is high enough, no other aura can ever pull you down. And this leads us to this idea of the chemistry themes, that each of these 5 types that we've looked at actually emits a theme through its chemistry. And chemistry is the auric vibration of these types as they interact with each other and with the whole of humanity. This is the orchestra, and it's brought into tune through harmonic relationships. So let's have a little look at some of these. And incidentally, this is how the planet is going to be transformed. It's simple, accessible. These simple, accessible chemistry themes. So if you're a manifestor, you notice that you have a negative chemistry theme and a positive chemistry theme. Obviously, the negative, what we're calling a negative theme, is generated by the low frequency pattern, and the positive is generated by a high frequency pattern. So for a manifestor, you're either provocative or you're empowering. And your attitude, there's an attitude that's ideal for each of the types. And for the manifestor, it's courtesy, because it's about considering. If you have the proactive life code, then you have to consider before you act, who's this going to affect? And if someone's annoyed with you, it's because at some level you probably didn't listen to them or you didn't consider them. And most of the time, if you're a manifestor, this is your secret, most of the time people only need to be listened to. That's usually enough. And it's having such an independent spirit can actually pull you down into a lower frequency, or it can raise you and others up to a higher frequency. So for you as a leader, because at some level all manifestors are here to be leaders in different ways, you have to be a listener. That's the real secret, because that's the courtesy. That's the ideal attitude, because if you can listen and consider as well as act in a proactive, independent way, that's truly powerful, and your life will just be flowing and easy for you. when you come to the manifesting generator, some of these words are really quite juicy and fun. It's obstinacy, it's dynamic, that's the positive, and it's patience. So patience is the key, because as a manifesting generator, if you are one or you know one, you'll know how hard it is to hold yourself back. And so the key is waiting for the right timing. Obstinacy may also be others, because in other words, if you jump into something too quickly without waiting for the right timing, remember your life code is response, it's not proactive, then you may find that someone is in your way and they're being obstinate, and because your rush provoked it, and so they're standing in your way, or in some energetic fashion. And many manifesting generators will take the hard way through life, but it doesn't have to be like that, where you're pushing against this huge flow, and it's just, the response path is actually the easiest path, because it's about relaxation. And so this incredible dynamism that the manifesting generator has, it's all about how it's released in the beginning, because you combine this manifesting power of the manifestor with the staying power of the generator. So at one level you have the least limitations of all these 5 types and the greatest possibility. At the other level you have the deepest possibility of feeling frustrated, because this dynamic power in you, it needs to be unlocked in a patient way. And once the mechanism of your life has unleashed you, then all that dynamic power can just pour out into whatever it is you're doing. For the pure generator, it's slightly different. The life code is still response. It's about resilience. And for the pure generator, really the secret is for you that everything reveals itself over time. So it's not advisable for you to be really worrying about where you're going. And just allow things to unfold in their own timing, in their own pace and rhythm. Remember, it's about rhythm and fluidity for you. And the secret for you is not to make an obstacle into a point of resistance, because obstacles are natural. They're thrown up by life along your way. So if you meet an obstacle in your life as a generator, it's good to be patient and allow it to dissolve in its own time and in its way. So you have to be resilient, and rather than thinking there's something wrong and the timing is wrong and you're slow and that you need to get on with things, that's the frustration coming out. You need to relax and allow the process of meeting obstacles every now and again to make you stronger. Because as a pure generator, you're actually the aura that is most stabilizing for the whole of humanity and for everyone in your environment. So it's not that you're slow at all. It's about pacing. Pacing yourself with the natural rhythms is what allows things to manifest around you with zero effort. So it's really, the secret for you is stay with the cycle and immerse yourself in the rhythm and really enjoy the generator, pure, steady, powerful rhythm. And when you come to the projector type, the projector type is all about faith. You've got to have faith. And it's actually the only protection you have from compromising, because as a projector, compromise is something that you will do very quickly and very easily in order to get that recognition that we were talking about earlier. So remember, as a projector, there's nothing that you have to prove to anyone or to yourself. You don't have to draw attention to yourself in any way whatsoever. Because as a projector, if you do that, if you try and get attention, even unconsciously, you'll always be perceived as interfering. That's your negative chemistry theme. And these can be very subtle. Like they can be very, very subtle. So in other words, if you overdress to an event because you're trying to get attention, people will they will just feel something in your aura that's not right, because there's an unconscious need in you to be seen. And that doesn't mean you can't dress in any way at all whatsoever. You know, you can be as funky and mad as you like, but it's just that I'm making a point. And also it means that other people will interfere with you because you're not creating this flow, because there's a need in you to be seen, because there's a fear that you won't be seen and recognized. And remember, the secret for you is about finding your true allies in life, because without those allies, your life destiny is waiting to occur. So with even a single ally beside you who recognizes you, the same people who didn't notice you before will suddenly want your attention. That's the magic. And when you do wait for that recognition, then what you bring as a positive chemistry theme is integration. You integrate all different energies and dynamic energies in any group or any situation just through your presence and through the skills and the genius that you're bringing to the table. So for you, it's all about devotion, and you have to realize that for you, relationships they have this karmic flavor. When you wait for the right ones to recognize you at the highest frequency, because then you're really in an empowered place. And finally, the reflector, which remember is the digestive life code. This is all about trust. And trust is different from faith, because faith is that you really have to have faith that those people are going to cross your path in life. You don't know when they're going to show up. You don't know who they're going to be. You just know that when they show, you'll recognize them and they'll recognize you immediately. But the reflector's different. The reflector's not waiting for anyone specific like that. The reflector's got to trust in everything around you, in the whole cosmos. Because remember, you're digesting your environment. You're digesting the whole quantum field all around you. And unlike the projector who's waiting for a sudden event or an encounter, as a reflector, you're destined to have a community revolve around you. And your highest potential is to reflect the highest frequency of that community. So to hold the vision for what humanity could and one day will become, that's really what you're all about. And when you attach to the shadow frequencies of others and you let them stick to you and you hold them inside you, because remember, nothing's meant to stick to you, that's when you dissipate your energy. And you dissipate the energy of others, and you create dissipation, energy loss in a whole. You can create it in a whole community if you're really not raising your own frequency and seeing the best in others, and not, coming out of the victim patterns. So you can really lose your way and lose your sense of self, and it's what happens to many reflectors. So embracing, which is your positive theme, that really means that you're the one place where people can come and not get an agenda reflected back. Because in my work with Integral Human Design for many years, I haven't met very many very clear reflectors. So there's a kind of cleansing process that has to take place for you as you raise your own higher frequencies and you realize what you're all about. You're not a victim of the frequencies around you. It's up to you how you translate in your DNA the frequencies that come towards you. And in the new collective consciousness that's coming to this planet, reflectors, you're going to be central. And it's really your time now, because you have to trust ultimately in the timing of your birth that made you or brought you in as a reflector life code. There wasn't a mistake in that. So you need to start seeing yourself as a really amazing spiritual being, in a way, a Christ or a Buddha or whatever these archetypes are for you. Because if you can't, how can anyone else? That's what you have to trust in, yourself, your highest self. And that's the message for all of us. The reflector holds the message for all of us. So that's really the magic of these chemistry themes. They enable us to see so much.
Thank you, Richard. That was very deep, opening precisely what this quadrant is about, all-embracing attitude, that our reflector aspect, each of us, like you said in the beginning, each of us has so much of a reflector in us, because most of our imprint is to be open. And what you just shared about the reflector is really, I want to go from there to summarize the quadrant again. It's about this all-embracing, really accepting the other person as they are, and together creating what Martin Buber called an I-Do relationship, where with your own life, in the flow, with your own life code, you can see the other person in their life code and how they work. And we're just talking about types here. We're just giving you a real one element of how we can describe our place into this big orchestra, in this big orchestra that we are. Our place, our specific contribution to the body of humanity. In Integral Human Design, we can describe this in much more depth. We don't not only have the basic type that Richard was talking about just now so beautifully, which is when you describe it in the musical orchestra, it would be the type of instrument you play. If you know your type of instrument and another person's type of instrument and how the auras interact, it's much more easy to make good music together. And in Integral Human Design, you can also have a description of the concert key you sing your song in. You have 12 profiles that show you, do you sing your song in B minor or A major or whatever. And you have the central elements of your song. And you can understand the central elements of the song of the other person and of the people that are in your family and in your group. And that's what this quadrant is about. Everyone contributes their potentials and specializations. And you even have access to with your prime gifts and how you summarize them. You can have this, even the musical genre you're in. Some people are here to contribute a waltz, and some people are here to contribute a march or salsa or romance or operetta or jazz or whatever. And together we're forming this orchestra. And Integral Human Design is inviting to interact in a way that respects both your own life code and the one of other people in all the differentiation. And it makes good relationships accessible. So that was the second quadrant.